Welcome to Group Dates and Hot Takes, a Bachelor Nation podcast. I'm Sampy, a Bachelor newbie.
And I'm Christy, a veteran. Join us as we take on season 25 of The Bachelor together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 11, the final episode / after the final rose.
Yes, it's the end of the road.
The end of the rose.
Truly.
Sorry, that was a terrible pun. I apologize.
Yeah, but it's true, though.
Yes, perhaps for Chris Harrison, at least.
Yeah, and maybe a couple other people.
Oh, boy. Well, where should we start here, Christy?
Well, there was some news this past week. Next season of The Bachelorette, which we can just spoil, I guess, that it's going to be Kate.
No, you're not you're not even going to wait till the end?
No, because because the hosts are different. So we're going to have Tayshia and Caitlin Bristow. I guess they're going to have two hosts for Katie.
Okay, I have
for
no
Katie's
idea
season.
I have no idea who the second one is.
She was the Bachelorette a few years ago.
Okay.
It would take too long to explain her whole story. So
Okay.
yeah.
Man, you've been waiting for so long to share that, haven't you?
The new host?
Yeah. I mean, it's not
that's-
been like super long.
Yeah, that
but-
was just announced like over the weekend, actually.
Oh, okay. I thought that was an earlier thing.
The Katie being the next Bachelorette was spoiled a while back.
And now you hear it here, folks. Do you want to talk about the rest of that, or do you want to start at the beginning now?
I guess, yeah, we can just say that Michelle is also going to be the Bachelorette, but it's going to air this fall, which they've never done this before.
And we have talked about this, I believe it was even last week, about the timing of everything. So now is it going to be, starting from the beginning of the year, Bachelor, Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise?
No, they're going to do, so after Katie's season, it's still going to go Bachelor in Paradise like normal.
Okay.
And
okay,
then
so,
Bachelorette. And then I presume
Again.
they will film the next Bachelor season in the fall like normal.
Okay, so in terms of airing, beginning of the year, Bachelor, then Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise, Bachelorette.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Lots of content.
So do you want to talk about some of the crazy external stuff first, or do you want to maybe go through the quote-unquote episode portion?
I guess we can do the episode part.
Okay, yeah, I think that probably makes sense, and then we can kind of talk about everything else, because that everything else probably ties more into the after the final rose.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Well, let's get started then.
I took note that it was snowing at this point.
So jealous.
Yeah, I didn't remember it snowing like that early. This would have been like November when this part was filmed last year. But
Well, they are out in PA, aren't they?
yeah, I don't know, it's not that far from where I am, but I guess it was.
Yeah, so two women left, Michelle and Rachel.
I noticed they have the pensive journaling shots. It's so cheesy. It's like, here, girls, just like stand there and pretend to write something down while we film you, like pondering this journey so far.
Yeah, that reminded me of the sort of thing you'd see in maybe like a college or university like advertisement, or even some sort of like smaller camp type thing where it's just like footage of student, like they're just sitting out on their own, deep in thought, journaling away. Like, I thought that was pretty funny. I honestly, the actual episode portion of this was fairly forgettable.
Yes, we're probably not going to spend a ton of time on it because the juicy stuff happens later. But yeah, Michelle meets his mom, Patty, and brother, John.
And did you know he had a brother before this? Because I had no idea.
Yes, but I didn't really know anything about him.
Okay. I still don't know
Yeah.
anything about him besides the fact that he did seem to be pretty soft-spoken.
Yeah, he seemed nice, I guess.
Yeah, so Michelle went first here.
Yeah.
Did you observe anything?
Not really. I mean, it's the same. Talking about how great Matt is.
Yeah, I guess. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Well, there was one thing that this is not important, but when Matt was chatting with his mom, he had his hand on her thigh, just like he does with the women. that really was unnerving. I like rewatched that clip this morning. It was so like creepy.
Oh man, yeah. The only real thing about the Michelle portion was how she gave him the jerseys.
Oh yeah, that was later, but yes, that was painful.
Wasn't that in her segment?
That was with the last date, like when he came to her room.
Oh wow, I totally wrote that down in the wrong place. Apparently my notes are disorganized. Wow,
it's okay.
I just spoiled everything. Well, I guess that goes to show how much I remembered about this segment, which apparently was nothing.
Well, there really wasn't much here. I mean, they had a snowball fight after they made out. It was standard stuff.
So tell me then, from a wider perspective, as somebody who has no idea what's going on, what is the purpose of these segments?
Well, it ends up being the parents or the family likes one girl over the other. And so that creates tension. Like last season, there was one that the mom was like in hysterics over, like she's the best thing. She's an angel sent from heaven above. And yeah, so usually there's like tension there where the bachelor prefers one person, but the family prefers the other. Huh. But this episode, they liked both girls, so that just made it kind of dull.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of meat to chew on.
No, I guess the biggest thing was, what Patty ended up saying to Matt that just kind of ruined everything.
Oh yeah, ruined everything. Yes, tell us about that, Christy.
Yeah, so after Rachel meets Patty and John, that was more of the same. Nothing there. And then I guess Matt comes back to talk to them, like for a debrief afterwards. And Patty says things like, love isn't the end all be all. Feelings can fade. And for some reason, this just like really sets Matt off in a way I've never seen before. And I didn't understand at all. Because neither of those statements are all that profound. Like, I just feel like he should have known feelings can fade. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I saw what happened with my parents. Like, I'm not ready. I'm pumping the brakes. Like, I don't understand what happened here.
Yeah, so I do want to talk about this in more depth. But maybe right now isn't the best place for it. But yeah, that really did set him off quite strangely. I don't know if we even, and I care to talk about Rachel's segment here, but jumping ahead a little bit, where he was talking to Chris then,
Yes.
and just I know you noticed this, but just how angry Chris was during this conversation.
Yeah, Matt talked about, like, the more I learn about my family, the more I need to, like, pump the brakes on this commitment. And Chris just says, that's a lot. And, like, Matt talks about, oh, I got new info. I have a change of heart. Mom doesn't want me to make the same mistake she did. And I'm just thinking, didn't he know? He knew about his family dynamic before he became the Bachelor. I don't understand why now at the end this is happening. And then Chris is like, so what you're saying is you don't want to get engaged at the end of this? And he's just like shooting daggers into him. Like, he looked so mad.
He's like, if you do me even worse than Claire did, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you.
Oh, that's right. He's still traumatized from that, I'm sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of funny, because I think this is how we sort of believe things should be, but I guess that's why we're not on The Bachelor. But just how, yeah, of course, people change and feelings change, and there's actually, I believe, some actual research done on how love changes over time, specifically what we feel as people sort of during different stages of our life, particularly with romantic partners, but just how that stuff does change, but it's not really a reason just to be like, yeah, love fades, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
because that's not necessarily accurate unless you allow it to be the case a lot of the time, because there are really different types of loves. And additionally, I think we both believe this about just how relationships are a long-term thing. like when you marry somebody, it's a pretty long-term thing, and those types of feelings are things you actually have to work to maintain the relationship. So it's pretty funny to just see how much he was overthinking this.
Yeah.
But also quite sad.
I mean, there's lots of reasons not to get engaged on The Bachelor, because that's just crazy. But, like, this being the thing that makes you crumble at the end just didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So do you want to go back to Rachel Meets the Family, or should we just forge ahead?
Let's just keep going. There's nothing happened there either.
Sorry, Rachel. It was boring.
Nope, she thinks she knew from the first night she was going to fall in love. I mean, like, what? Yeah, there's nothing there. Particularly with how this whole ends. Like what's the point?
Yes. I guess let's move on to Michelle's date.
Yes, they go back to, like, the main building where all the, like, rose ceremonies and everything happened, and they went up to the roof.
Oh, so romantic.
Yeah, and they spot this heart-shaped date, I guess, that was set up on the ground, and the only way to get there is to rappel down the side.
Tell us how you really feel about that, Christy.
I don't understand these adrenaline type. We must prove our love for each other by performing a heart-stopping activity. And then, like, as they were actually rappelling down, like, it took them a while to get the hang of it. Like, Matt jumped off like upside down.
Like an idiot.
His feet were above his head.
Yeah, that's not how you do that, folks.
Thank goodness for strong ropes.
Yeah, I don't know. I would definitely rappel down a building.
Of course you would.
Christy, on the other hand, does not want that in her life.
Especially with the way they did it. I feel like the same with the skydiving earlier in the season. They keep showing, like, these types of things, but done wrong. So I'm like, I definitely don't want to do this now.
Well, I guess you'll just have to find a place where they rappel down buildings properly and give it a try there.
I guess so.
All sorts of kissing still. There was a lot of kissing in this episode.
Yeah, they had to pause rappelling to kiss on the way down. She couldn't wait till they got to the ground.
Look, if I was gonna be rappelling off the side, I mean, it was probably, the building was like 4 stories high or something, wasn't it? Like, it's a pretty tall building.
Yeah, it was tall.
Pretty tall building. Like, that's a decent amount of time. Like, if I was going down, like, with my wife there, rappelling down the side of the building, I would stop to kiss. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just a guy thing where we're like, yeah, we'd love to kiss people rappelling off buildings.
While you're dangling in the air.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Not really on Christy's priority list, people.
No, my priority is to get safely to the ground.
Well, was this night portion heartbreaking or what?
Yeah, I knew it was coming, but it was still
Well, of course
rough
you knew it was coming.
to watch.
You know everything. Yeah, so this is actually when she gave him the jerseys.
Yes. Usually there's a gift given at the last date like this, so this is like kind of normal. But
Okay.
Michelle gave him these matching jerseys, and he was like, well, that's it.
Well, because the thing, I don't know, it's just unfortunate. Because he played basketball with her and her family, and they were kind of talking about changing the world together and like all this different stuff. And so that was actually quite a thoughtful gift given all of their history. So yeah, so it was Mr. James and Mrs. James matching jerseys, and then he was like, you need to leave.
Yeah, said he is having doubts. I mean, this is all still stemming from the whole feelings can fade,
Yeah,
I guess, and now he can't see it with Michelle all of a sudden. Like, I don't blame her for feeling blindsided. Like, this came out of nowhere for her.
Yeah, and Matt has kind of done a lot of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Yeah.
She said it was a flip of a switch, and then Matt's like, I don't want you to think it was a flip of a switch, but I feel like it was. Like, as far as she knew, she met his family and everything was great.
Yeah.
So.
Which the sad thing was too that she met his family after he started freaking out, right?
It was kind of around the same time. Well, I guess right after.
Yeah, he just can't shake that feelings fade.
No, I guess not.
I'm beginning to think this man isn't ready to get married.
Yeah. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to mention earlier. There was a sound bite. I guess like right before his mom met the two girls, and mom said it's a long shot he will be engaged. So she knew something.
Wow. That's unfortunate. Yeah, because she, you were telling me last night, right, that people were not a fan of her because she, voted for Trump.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't know that for sure who she voted for, but she's
Well,
posted
we
stuff.
We don't, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, internet people get very angry.
I've noticed.
This is a recurring theme. I feel like I've said those exact same words. Internet people get very angry in at least 4 of our episodes.
Probably.
Because let me tell you, it's true. It is very true. Oh, man. Yeah, so really, at this point, he is just completely losing his mind. and is all like, I need time, and so
Yeah, he has a scene with Chris again, just sitting on the ground, just more of the same. I refuse to put Rachel through what my mom went through. And then that famous line, everything I was working towards is starting to crumble. So
because he said that before, hasn't he?
see, I don't know where that audio came from originally. I don't know if they played it earlier and it came from here, or
Oh, maybe. Oh, actually, yes. I think because I think they've shown like a preview of this a couple times, so that must be where it comes from. Because we have heard that before.
yeah, I thought they played that over like the preview of Rachel crashing from skydiving, but it seems like it really was from this episode. But
yeah, I think you are correct.
so yeah, Rachel gets a note. Actually, no, before that, Chris comes to her door and she goes, "Hi!" Like really, this weird like greeting. And
She was excited, Christy.
yes, but a little too excited to see Chris. That's not a good thing if you see Chris Harrison arriving and it's supposed to be Matt. So
Yeah, he was also he, talking of Chris Harrison, was also just leaning on the door in a very strange fashion as well during that whole interaction with her.
I missed that.
I was very confused. But yeah, I mean, was there anything there that I missed besides just like, it's very much, yeah, he needs some time. I hate to like be the bearer of bad news, but like there's not gonna be a date today.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. So then we had to pump Matt back up.
Yeah, he's too sad. He's in shambles.
Yeah, so how do they get him back, Christy?
Well, we bring in Neil Lane.
Yeah.
Because Neil Lane needs to have product placement at least once a season.
Can I say your quote about this, or is that too bad? Is that too terrible?
No, you can't.
So a few weeks ago, we were talking about Neil Lane. This was outside of an episode, I believe. And Christy says, "I don't want a ring from that creepy old man."
Oh, he just like resurfaces with his box of rings. Like, I don't know why.
Yeah, he's
I'm
like
so creepy.
Well, I think, and this is just sort of my first impressions, but you do sort of get the vibe a little bit. I don't know if you've I think it's sort of a trope, perhaps more common in older movies or even like memes and stuff like that, of like that alleyway drug dealer who has like the trench coat and they open it up and it's like they have all these things attached to the inside of the trench coat.
Yeah.
Like, that's the sort of thing that it reminds me of. I was like, "Psst, you want a really ugly engagement ring? I got you, man. I got all these things."
Yeah, and they really are ugly. Like the one Matt picked was terrible.
Yeah, and I think that just probably ends up being, because I don't know the rest of his catalog, but I would assume that they sort of bring a certain selection because of, right? It's like $100,000 ring, right?
Thereabouts, just ridiculously overpriced.
And so I think at that point, at that sort of level, it ends up being more about the status of it instead of the beauty of it necessarily. Like it matters more, I think, for it to be just like a giant stone.
I guess because every year it's always like this. Just gaudy, just over the top.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. It's just like what's her face? Who was it that we were talking about fairly recently? Was it Demi Lovato's engagement ring?
Yeah, she had a very ugly one as well as Ariana Grande.
Yeah, but again, those are both situations where like the ring was just like absurdly expensive. I mean, by a factor of like 10 at least, probably over these rings. Like those were like $1 million or multi-million-dollar rings, and so I think that ultimately that is the point. That it's just like, yeah, I was able to afford a diamond the size of your face. Ha.
Yeah, it's obnoxious in my opinion.
Yeah, so I guess this was just one Neil Lane product placement and then trying to push Matt into engagement.
Yeah, he said the ring represents what my father couldn't give to my mother, which was an odd statement, I thought. And then asking, am I ready for this? Which I'm thinking maybe he should have figured that out before he signed on to become the Bachelor. But what do I know?
Wow, that is so mean.
Maybe a little bit, but this makes no sense. Like,
well, because he also did say, right, he was like, maybe I just need to feel the ring in my hand.
I know, what?
It's like, maybe that'll give me clarity about what I need
Matt.
to do. Yeah.
I'm making fun of him now because I'll come to his defense later.
Yeah, I have some notes about things that I want to say about that whole situation. But yeah, so he's like, okay, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, and sends Rachel a letter telling her to meet him at the lake.
Yes, you. Please explain this whole situation, because I'm very interested to hear how you would describe like the whole just setting and what happened.
This is like normally what would happen at the end with the final two. Normally both Michelle and Rachel would have showed up to this final like proposal site, and Michelle would have walked up and gave her little speech, and then Matt would have started his speech and then said some nice things and then said, but my feelings are stronger for somebody else. And then it's very awkward. And then Michelle, he walks her back to the limo SUV and she drives away.
Okay.
And then Rachel would show up and they would like get engaged. So this is just half of that basically, but with a very somber, miserable mood. Like, Matt, one side note, I saw on Instagram that the tie he was wearing cost $220. It's a Gucci tie.
Wow, I don't understand that.
But yeah, he just looks so sad.
A great outlook to have when you're supposed to be proposing to somebody.
I know, and then he even said, it's all going to come to me when I see her. I don't know how this will end.
Oh no.
How is this your mindset here? I'm really glad he didn't propose. Can you imagine if he had?
Oh, that would have been slightly awkward. But yeah, it's just funny too, because as we've talked about before, the sort of outlook that the two of us have in our own personal lives is just very different than the working of things on The Bachelor. You know, just how like, and I feel like this is maybe more normal. Hopefully it's more normal, but like, I am going to want to marry the person that I propose to. So I'm going to be happy about it. And it's just going to be a lot more certain.
I would certainly hope so. Wow. Yeah, Rachel arrives. This was just weird too. Like, I guess she gave her little speech, which I did not retain any of. And then Matt has a speech where he's like, everything I found, or everything I was looking for, I found with you. The easy thing would be to propose and make you happy. But I don't want to repeat the mistakes my parents made of rushing into our proposal. That's why I can't propose today. But that doesn't mean I want to lose you. I want to leave here with you, commit to you. I see you as my wife and mother of my kids.
Yeah, and he did actually, to the shock of everyone, say that he loved her.
Yeah. So at that moment, things were fine.
Well, and talk about the weather a little bit.
Oh, yeah. We saw it was snowing recently, and Rachel is in a normal dress. She must have been so cold. Like, I could see her breath.
Yeah, I mean, it was, no sleeves.
No jacket, just 70-degree weather attire.
Yeah, it was slightly more chilly than that.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Yeah, so that's kind of where we left things.
Yeah.
No proposal, no engagement, but
Just riding
I
off in a
guess
horse-drawn carriage.
still dating, riding
Yep.
off into the sunset.
Yeah. So then we moved to after the final rose.
Oh boy.
So,
Where do you want to start here, Christy?
I mean, I guess we can start where Emmanuel starts. So he comes out as the host and referenced Rachel's photos right off the bat. Said
Did you want to talk about him specifically at all? Like anything like about Emmanuel himself?
I mean, I thought he did fine. I mean, it's a weird position to come into, to a spot where somebody has been doing this for like almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm. I think you are correct. I thought that he did a good job. The only kind of funny thing, and I'm not familiar with the other media stuff he does, so I'm not sure if this is a normal thing for him or if he was just sort of getting into the whole thing. But it's sometimes known, and I don't know if this is more of a common thing that people know this culturally, or if it's just like because I've been in actor circles and at drama school and stuff, but it's maybe referred to as the William Shatner School of Acting sort of thing, because there's a lot of pregnant pauses and a lot of pauses maybe where they didn't totally make sense, which is just kind of funny because I do that a ton myself. And I think mine sort of comes more from doing a lot more theater and Shakespeare. I don't know where his comes from, but it was just kind of funny because I was like, I do that.
I don't think I noticed it that much. I guess I just assumed that was like his speaking style, but I also...
It might be.
I also
totally
haven't...
might be.
Like, I've heard him on a podcast, but I don't remember, like, if that's how he spoke there. So that's about all I have.
I would have to look into more of the stuff that he does to speak on that more definitively. But yeah, he did a good job, I would say.
Yeah. So I guess they started with Michelle, who came out wearing a $1,400 dress. I love how that works. Like, she didn't buy that they have stylists who come in with these name brand dresses just for TV. So fun.
Must be nice.
Yes. I guess they talk about her breakup.
Yeah.
I guess the main thing with the breakup is that she wanted to talk more with him, but that either wasn't allowed or Matt just didn't want to. I was a little unsure.
Yeah, because wasn't she talking about how she was talking about the producers at some point in there?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet if it was just like, okay, he dumped you, get out of here, or if she like tried to have a conversation with him after the show. Maybe like I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, well, I think it was while they were still there in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So, and then Emmanuel also asked her how she felt about Rachel's photos, which I thought she had a good response there about how she felt hurt, how it's like a lack of understanding of racial history. And also like how it was another weight added on when then Chris tried to defend Rachel's photos. That was an important part too.
Yeah, well, as we all know, he made that situation much worse.
Yes.
Would any of this have happened had Chris Harrison not done that interview?
I think they would have still talked about the photos. I just think it wouldn't have blown up in the media as much. Because it was primarily just like a Twitter Reddit thing before Chris stuck his foot in it. So
yeah, he did not do a good job there.
no.
I feel like his only like outside of the show, right? Because they do create some drama on the show, but I feel like outside of the show, his job is primarily to not cause drama.
Yes, he's very much the company man, just cliche
And
responses.
he totally failed there. Yeah, so Michelle gets her couple minutes with Matt here that she had wanted.
Yeah, Matt apologized for not talking with her after the breakup. This was their typical like final two-person convo.
Okay.
Like, you've taught me a lot. I know what I'm looking for. I did love how she pointed out his thanks for sharing phrase.
Yes, because we've been dragging him for that for
Yes.
quite a while. And and she also I think she was like, I hope you start kissing with your eyes closed and come up with more phrases than thanks for sharing.
Yes. A good line.
Yes, quite funny. Yeah, so then bye Michelle.
Yes, for now.
For now.
So then Emmanuel chats with Matt about being the first Black Bachelor and just, I guess, being Black in general. I thought this was a good convo, especially for the Bachelor audience.
Are you saying they needed to hear this?
Perhaps, based on some of the comments I've seen on the internet, people just don't understand.
Well, nobody's going to pay attention to this.
No, they probably blocked it out, but at least it was there.
Yeah, I mean, they probably didn't even watch the episode.
That's possible, but I feel like if you watched up until 10 o'clock, are you really going to turn it off and not see
maybe.
like how this all ends just because you hate that Chris isn't there?
It depends. People can be pretty angry. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was probably a better conversation than maybe normally happens.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. And particularly because I keep I keep saying this, I have notes of things to say later. I guess I'll wait a little bit longer. But yeah, so basically, I saying that because I have things to say about Matt, and so I don't want to just come across as like reveling in his failures here. But we did find out here that he and Rachel are no longer together, which our listeners may remember last episode where I said, right, and this was last episode, wasn't it? And not 2 episodes ago?
About the beard?
Or actually, no, it was 2 episodes ago because it was the Women Tell All.
Yes, that was 2 weeks ago.
And just so everybody knows as well, unlike Christy, I do not see spoilers.
Correct.
So I don't actually know what's happening. But 2 weeks ago, when I saw him on the Women Tell All, I was like, that is a single beard. And I bet he went to the end with Rachel, and then they broke up afterwards. That's what I said.
You were right. I didn't want to confirm it at the time.
No, Christy wouldn't give me anything, but it turns out that I was right, unfortunately. That it does appear to be a single beard after all.
Yes. Turns out all her just mess was too much.
And here's a question for you. Do you think that the punishment matched the crime?
Based on the stuff that was revealed later, yes.
What stuff was revealed
like
later?
The fact that Matt had to explain to her like why that was problematic or wrong, like in 2021.
Okay.
And just like, I guess the fact that she, like, I feel like it's hard to be in a relationship with somebody if they don't understand just fundamental stuff like that. Because just based on like their body language later, it really seemed like he really didn't like her anymore. Like there might have even been more stuff like behind I don't know what their conversations were like, but
yeah, and obviously we don't know everything that happened. And I think it can be easy to some level to just be like, yeah, like, you know, she went to this party and like, yeah, it was dumb, but you know, she grew up in Alabama, so like whatever. And I think a lot of people are like do have that mindset. They're like whatever, who cares? But once you sort of add later things, right? Because it's one thing if it's like something that's happened in the past and was an isolated incident versus just like having this constant mindset.
Yeah, plus there were other things too besides just that party. So it was like, I guess just a combination of things plus Matt having to be the one to sit her down and talk about, like, you don't want to have to do that.
Right. That's tough too.
Especially as a black person. That's not his job.
Correct. I mean, it is kind of tough because you do, on one hand, you do want to, I guess, be aware, and I think it's the reality of living in like a more multicultural world of just like there are going to be people who are different from you, and that's just sort of the reality of the situation. And so you do actually need to try to put some effort into like understanding the people you're going to come across. That can be tough sometimes, I think, without like learning from people of those backgrounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think it would be incredibly difficult to expect your romantic partner to have that like have that responsibility.
Yeah.
Versus taking more of the responsibility yourself.
Yeah, it's just tough. I also feel like Matt was facing a lot of pressure just from the audience not to stay with somebody with that past. So I feel like that might have factored into it as well. Like if this were just some random guy and girl and this came up in her past and they're just like a normal person, that might have changed things some.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was pressure from all sorts of angles, from people being unhappy about her past, people being like, why is this an issue? Like, Chris Harrison rules. Like, be in love. Like, there were a lot of things like that, and I think that he was concerned about that from the beginning. I mean, you had his initial sort of aside with Chris, where he was like, yeah, a lot of people are gonna expect me to like end up with someone who's black, but I don't know, like all that different stuff. I think there was a lot of pressure on him for sure.
Yeah, so he brought Rachel out, I guess, by herself to talk about everything. I think the best part of this segment was the fact that she didn't even, like, Emmanuel asked her, like, did she lay awake at night wondering if these photos were going to surface? And she said no. Like, that was shocking to me. Like, you're going on a show with the first black bachelor and you have slavery photos in your past and you don't wonder,
Yeah, first of all, that was a great question.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that he did like ask that question, because it is something that we've talked about on this show before, right?
I was wondering that
just
too.
about how these people, even in maybe more extreme examples, like what's her face, the previous contestant you were telling us about, who had 1.5 million tweets, just
Taylor,
being terribly mean to like every single group of people under the sun. That is a question, and I think her answer here was quite illuminating. And I think that probably is what happens with people. They just don't think about it, because they don't realize that it could be taken a certain way, and they don't realize that it's not, a good thing that they did those things.
Yeah.
And so they don't worry about it. I think that's probably the most common thing, is they just don't worry about it. And perhaps that's why we're so confused, is because maybe we are more self-aware. And so if we did post something that was inappropriate, we would know, because we do think about those things. And it would be a big deal for us, and it would be bad, because we know that those are the sorts of things that do not reflect who we are as people, right? So that was a pretty interesting question. It was also kind of funny that they put up the photo.
Yes. Like, just in case you missed this.
Which is also just kind of funny too, because I feel like the photo itself isn't that, and maybe that's why they felt like they could share it, versus like if it had been a photo of her, say, I don't know, like in blackface or something. So obviously the context was the important thing, right? Because otherwise it would have just been like these three ladies in these frilly dresses. But it was pretty like, yeah, let's just put this up. Yeah, we'll just like get this up. So how does this make you feel?
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny. The one thing that just kind of got me here, right? Because I have sort of defended Rachel a little bit in the past, but when he was asking about, so like what have you done to kind of like deal with this? And literally her response was like, I could just sit here and tell you about like all of the books I've read, all of the documentaries I've watched, all the podcasts I've listened to. And it's just like, well then, like tell like, right, like that, because she literally just was like, yeah, I've done all this stuff and I've taken action, but she never really actually said anything she's done, uh, which is just kind of I don't know. It was like, really?
Yeah, it was a weird response. Like, I mean, I guess on social media she can post like what she's learning, but then none of that really matters. Like, I don't really care what she posts on her social media. Like, I think what you do in real life is more important. But
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, uh, I don't think it's easy to be a judge of that, right? And I think it's a little weird sometimes too. And I forget exactly what Chris Harrison said, but in one of his statements, he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to see like it's like a racial coach or something like that." Like
yeah,
he was like, I don't remember the exact terminology. Um, so that sort of thing can kind of be weird because it's like, well, like, right? It's just hard to judge people's intentions and stuff.
yeah, because racism is more internal usually. Like your thought process, like you that comes out in your actions usually and the things you say.
Yeah, a lot of that does end up being internal, but it's just like, so again, yeah, it's hard to judge, but I did not like her attitude. Just like the way she went about that, just how like, let me just tell you what I'm doing while not telling you what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That was kind of painful.
Yeah, well, what followed was even more painful when Matt came out and joined them. Just lots of dead air, silence, sighs. Just brutal. I don't know how else to describe it. Like we literally like went to commercial break, came back, and it was more like.
And it was still, yeah, basically he was just, Matt was sitting there like basically just sitting there, internal screaming. And we got to commercial, came back, and he was still, and Emmanuel Celeste just like, use your words, Matt. like,
Yeah.
say something.
He eventually did come back and say the most disappointing thing was having to explain why it was problematic, not fully understanding blackness, like what our kids would go through. He also said, I didn't sign up to have this conversation, which I kind of locked in on that too. Like Matt being the first Black Bachelor, this should have not been something he had to deal with. Like at all. Producers should have protected him, done the necessary research to make sure you don't have a situation like this. And they failed. Like they failed him and like specifically.
Yeah, this was a quite awkward conversation.
Yeah. I also want to point out real quick that Rachel's mom apparently went on social media and said, how could she be racist if she's dating a black man? So like her family is not helping things either.
Well, and I mean,
this was just hard to watch.
As he was talking about previously, and obviously we don't know what's on people's hearts and minds, and we have a very limited perspective based on what's been filmed and what we've seen online. But I don't particularly think that she's racist either. But as Emmanuel was saying earlier at one point, just because, you're not somebody who, like, sees a black person or, like, an Asian person or whatever ethnicity, and just because you don't see somebody like that and go, like, oh, man, gross, or, like, they're lesser than I am, or, like, whatever sort of things you typically think about as being more overt things, even if that's not where you are, that doesn't excuse you from being an idiot and not, understanding things.
Yeah. Like he was saying, like things can show up as racially ignorant, but that doesn't mean you are a racist, essentially.
Yeah, and that's not to say, obviously, that's not something that can, hurt other people.
Yeah.
Or be stupid, stupid or
it's
bad.
still not good.
Yeah, it's still not good. But that is in particular. Yeah, and this maybe not quite as extreme, but sort of the thing you hear something. It's like, I'm not racist. I know a black person.
Yeah.
They're like, one of my I have a black friend. I'm not racist.
Yeah.
Well, like maybe you're not like racist in your heart of hearts or whatever, but like you very well may have just like misconceptions or harmful stereotypes or what have you. What fun. The only this isn't really a problem with him, but I just feel like it was kind of savage for Emmanuel to be like, yeah, you guys should have a final embrace.
Oh, that was so bad. They just sat there stone-faced.
Just sat there on the couch doing nothing.
They should have edited that out. That was very painful.
Oh man, yeah, that was. Pretty funny, but I don't know. I don't know what the thinking was behind that. I don't know if he just thought that maybe they would, or he thought it would be good television for them to not. I was like, oh man, you really just kind of called him out here.
Yeah.
Just sat there. Yeah. Did you want to talk about the Bachelorette reveal at all more before I kind of talk about what I wanted to talk about here?
There wasn't much here. They brought both of them out, which I thought was interesting. Trying to act like one of them was gonna get it, but like, come on, you're not gonna say to one you have it and the other one's just sitting there bummed. Like, of course, like it's gonna be both. But I'm happy about it. I like Michelle.
Yeah, the two of them were among, my more liked contestants from this season. So I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess I'll try to keep this fairly short, and definitely comment or challenge me if you wish, Christy. But my big takeaway from this season was that Matt was wholly and totally unprepared for this experience in every possible way. And part of that, I think, goes back to your comment about the producers not protecting him. But I also think that really boils down to, in a lot of ways, because I think the producers not protecting him ended up being more of an extra thing or potentially a symptom of the larger problem. But ultimately, I think that Matt needs therapy.
Yes.
Like, that is complete. Like, that is just like dead seriously. Like, that is my takeaway. Like, I think that there was just so much going on in his life. Being raised by a single mom, and his dad was not present. Like, that, I'm sure, did so much damage and caused so much hurt to him. Like, going back to the producers not protecting him, I think that, as we were talking about before, them airing that conversation that he had with his father was a terrible idea. And really, that is a conversation that I think should have happened, one, off screen, but also not in The Bachelor, but also with a therapist or a counselor of some kind. somebody to actually guide the conversation a little bit, somebody who could speak into the situation as a third party, kind of direct things in a positive direction. And I think that there's just so much. I think he was just bringing so much baggage into this experience that even if all this other stuff hadn't happened, I feel like he wouldn't have been in a great place by the end of this anyway. Like earlier, when his mom was like, yeah, like love is fading, like, and that really threw him for a loop. I think that threw him for a loop because of his entire life experience. And so he's like trying to make his own sort of destiny that's separate from his parents, and he wants to like be there as a husband. He doesn't want to repeat his parents' mistakes. There are so many things that just sort of point to unresolved trauma in my perspective. And as somebody who like is a huge advocate for like therapy, counseling, I think if he had been able to go through a process like that before this, and I'm not talking about like in preparation for this. I feel like honestly that he should not have even done The Bachelor, just because of his own problems. Like I think he's a good guy, and I don't have a problem with him being The Bachelor, but in some ways, I feel like him going on The Bachelor in the state that he went on The Bachelor was similar to how it would have been if I had gone on The Bachelor like 6 years ago. Like, it just a train wreck because there's so much stuff that he needs to be able to deal with in a healthy way personally himself. And then obviously you have all of this extra stuff that's stacked on top of that. And so you have all this unresolved trauma, his expectations of where he wants his life to go and how he doesn't want to be like his father, and you just stack everything else, all of the Rachel stuff, and how that just absolutely totally blew up, with the Chris Harrison interview. And then I'm sure he was getting all sorts of pressure from all sides regarding that, like, oh, you shouldn't get engaged to this woman. She's horrible. Oh, like, who cares? Like, Chris Harrison's the best. Like, why would you be concerned about this? And so there were just so many extra things. And then on top of that, then he actually had to confront the fact that like these things were true about Rachel, and that he did kind of have to explain to her why it was a big deal. And I think ultimately all of those things just combined to end in the result that we saw at the end of the episode.
Yeah, he looked like broken. Like just like this whole thing just did a number on him, like mentally, like every way. Just
yeah, I would not be surprised at all. And that's something that and again, I with all of the media and attention, this is more intense in a lot of ways than what I've gone through. But just from my own mental health perspective, that's all I can really speak on. That's something that happens when you have a lot of unresolved trauma. You can only stuff things down so far. There's only there's a limited capacity to do that, and eventually, the more and more stuff that gets added on, particularly the more traumatic stuff that gets added on in a short time frame, it's very easy for that stuff to spill over. And so now, not only are you dealing with the stuff that's happening in the present, so dealing with the Rachel scandal and having to be like, yeah, like this is what it means for me to be a black man. Suddenly you have everything from his childhood on through just like exploding into his life now. So I don't know. I should say, I'm not a licensed therapist or psychologist or anything, but that's kind of my perspective from dealing with my own serious mental health stuff in the past. I feel like they really did not treat him well, and I don't know if that's something that they should have. Like, I know that they really should have protected him a lot better, but is that something, I don't know how you even find something like that out, right? Unless it does come to the surface like this.
Well,
And maybe it wouldn't have happened if they had actually like done a good job at protecting him. There is probably an argument there.
I mean, they do lots of like psychological testing, and there's supposedly a therapist on set, but producers, as a rule, do a terrible job of protecting like all their contestants in the past. Just they do a lot of things to screw them over. They air things that are embarrassing and splice together to make it look like you said things you didn't. Like, they just don't. They never have contestants' best interests at heart. So if you're going to do this show, you need to be in a better mental state to start off with, and it sounds like Matt wasn't. And then you add all the racial stuff on top of that, and it's just disaster.
Yeah. And maybe that goes back to, like, right, his sort of coming into the show fresh.
Yes, never having done it
potentially,
before.
Yeah, that potentially was a mistake, another thing, because he really didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people online, dragging him about just his, well, a lot of things like indecisiveness, like all of the things that we've seen, are just like scratching our heads. We're like, Matt, what incarnation are you thinking here? But I think that all of those things make a lot more sense when you can consider the big picture, which is why, like, ultimately, like, I just feel bad for the guy, because I know how difficult the mental health component of stuff is, and how painful the childhood trauma thing is. And then there's just so much more added on top of that. It's like I broke under like a quarter of that stuff. And he had all this extra stuff added. So yeah, I really hope that he is able to be around people who actually are supportive of him and don't just exist to screw him over. And I hope that he does get therapy.
Yeah. I also think he needs to probably take a bit of a break from social media and just Bachelor people in general, because those people generally don't have your best interests at heart. And when you have a ton of followers and you're just a pseudo celebrity, it's hard to, that sort of circumstance can't be easy to get your mind right in.
Correct. Yeah, I would agree with that. And as you were saying before, I think it was last episode, and I think you've probably said it before then too, like, this is a whole ecosystem, right? And I don't think that it is a healthy ecosystem.
Far from it.
And so if you're part of that ecosystem, I think things can be very difficult if you actually like legitimately need help of some kind. Because as people are hopefully becoming more aware of, social media is not particularly healthy.
Nope.
And probably even less healthy for Black Bachelor people.
Yes.
Just because of how just utterly terrible people are to them online.
Yeah. People are really nasty. I'm just annoyed that like last summer when everything was happening after George Floyd, ABC was like, oh crap, we've never had a Black Bachelor. They cast one, and then this is what like this whole mess is not supposed to be like this.
No, and honestly, I feel like this is maybe even more of a an indictment against the show than maybe some of the other stuff, right? Because they just they brought him on, and then they just were
Treated it
like,
like
well,
any other
screw
season.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, real great. The Bachelor definitely does have some pretty significant problems.
Yeah. So, what do you think of your first season?
Well, I don't know,
It's
Christy.
not normally like this. So, this is like a weird one to start with.
Yeah, this was a lot. For sure.
Normally, there's a happy couple right now we'd be talking about.
A happy couple for like another couple months.
Yeah, but at least right now when it airs. But instead, we have misery.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and hopefully it's a little less toxic normally, but it does seem like an environment that encourages toxicity to a certain extent. And just the worst in humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just at a loss for words. That is where I'm at. I would definitely like to see The Bachelor be not quite as ridiculous in the future. As I've said before on this show, I think that it's kind of ridiculous to hold other ethnicities to different standards. You just choose like utterly ridiculous, like nonsense people who are white all the time.
Yep.
Who care, like that is more indicative to me of like having the wrong attitude. Right? Obviously, they have to like comb through how many thousands of submissions each season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling me that like the black people, the Asian people, the the Indian people, the whatever like ethnicity, you're telling me that like those people who submitted were just so awful that you like had to pick Victoria, for example. Like,
That's
and
really
I don't want to
bad.
like, I don't want to like throw so much shade at her, like.
Well, that's deserved in my opinion.
But it's an easy example, right? Because
Yeah.
she was just like so over the top, so dramatic. Like it's like, well, what is she adding to this besides drama? But it's more concerning to me to like see things from that perspective.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure people like that submitted. And yeah, you don't want to be like, okay, well, we have 25 contestants. I'm just making that number up. So we need, 5 of them to be white. We need 5 of them to be black. We need 5 of them to be Indian. Like that's kind of silly.
Yeah.
But I'm sure those people have been submitting. So
yeah, well, I also kind of thought like since we had Tayshia as the Bachelorette last year and then Matt, I thought, well, are they really going to do 3 black leads in a row? I don't think so, which is probably why they went back 11 spots to the 11th place finisher, bypassing all those other women that finished ahead of her to get to a white contestant with Katie.
Ah, big oof.
And then, I guess we can have Michelle too later on. So they gotta split it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Katie was very popular.
Yes.
But that is pretty funny to view it from that angle. And I think that both of us are pretty cynical.
Yes.
When it comes to The Bachelor in particular. And so I think perhaps that we might see things a little bit for more of how they are potentially, just based on our personalities and how we view it. But yeah, this was quite the season. And too, I I don't get either because, like, right, Tasha was incredibly popular, right?
Yeah, I mean, people really liked her season, I think.
Yeah, like that's what I've seen a lot online is that people like really liked her season and are like really happy that she and whoever she picked betraying my ignorance here.
Zach.
I have no idea who she's. You know, did they actually get engaged or are they just dating?
Yes, they're engaged.
They did get engaged. Okay, yeah. So like people seem to be really happy about that. So what's the big deal?
Yeah, it shouldn't. That's the thing. It shouldn't be a big deal. It shouldn't be a big deal when you cast a black bachelor. That's the crazy part. Like it should just be, oh, he just happens to be black. But because you never cast any, then it becomes a huge. It'd be the same if they cast an Indian bachelor. Like that would also make big news. But that's what happens when you exclude everybody for 20 years. You've like dug a hole that it's hard to get out of now.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And I don't have the statistics on this, but like billions of people are not white.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't be a hot take, but I feel like for this franchise kind of is a hot take.
I mean, the majority of their audience is white, so
yeah, but
they're
like
playing to that.
Who cares?
Yeah, it shouldn't matter, but
like you're just as much of a great person as I am being black. Like who cares?
Well, I don't know.
Will they see the errors of their ways?
I think they're trying, but
well, they're
we'll
at least
see.
trying in air quotes. Whether they're actually trying, perhaps, is a different question. Yes, we shall see. Will Chris Harrison ever return? Will people still be mean on the internet? I mean, that is definitely a yes.
The second one is a yes. I don't know yet.
Will the Bachelor franchises have black people on the show in the future? We will see. Yeah, that whole situation just particularly as someone who like literally had like I knew of The Bachelor, right? Just culturally. But I never watched it and like I knew like probably the only thing I knew was like that they were like trying to find like somebody to get engaged to out of a bunch of people and like there were roses involved. Like that's literally all I knew. And so coming into this and actually learning some of these things is quite strange for me. Because like I probably would have just assumed that there had been a lot of black people and Asian people and like just all these other ethnicities just because like there are a lot of those people in the US. But I guess if your demographic is like white women in their 40s, presumably, I don't know if that's actually true, but I feel like that's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
Like I feel like your demographic is not hugely represented in the viewership of The Bachelor. You know, like black women 25 to 35 whatever.
Yeah, it's a small percentage.
And so maybe they just feel justified in that. They're like, well, all of the people who watch are white, so
I mean, it used to be way worse. Like when I first started watching, you were lucky to see one in the whole cast. So they've come a long way.
Yeah, they have a long way left to go, that's for sure.
Yeah. Do you have a kiss count?
Do I have a kiss count? Does the sun rise every morning? Yes, I do. So first of all, we had 16 kisses this episode alone.
Impressive.
Which is if last episode had not been so wild, would have been a record. It is the second most kisses in an episode, despite only having 2 people in it.
Yep, and a missing date.
Now, I also have our total kiss counter for kisses shown on screen, season 25 of The Bachelor. Is this right? Who knows? I did my best, everyone. But the final number that I have here is 133.
Wow. I remember we were at one point, we were wondering if we were going to break 100, but we long passed that.
Those were more innocent times, Christy.
Well,
yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I don't know if enjoyed is necessarily the right word. I enjoy podcasting.
No, I said I hope he enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well.
I know you didn't enjoy that.
Yeah, hopefully it was worth it. I tend to think that it was not worth it. But hopefully at least it prompts him to realize that he actually needs to go and build a better support network and hopefully get counseling or therapy of some kind to work through some of these things. But no, I don't think overall it was a positive experience for him.
No, this turned his life upside down and not in a good way.
Yes. Yeah, not the, head over heels in love romantic way. The, I never want to speak to you again kind of way.
Yeah, I just can't believe what a mess this was. But It's over now.
Yep. So, as far as plans for the future, I think we will at least be back for the next season of The Bachelorette. Maybe we will try to produce an episode here or there in between to keep y'all's attention. Maybe we'll start doing episodes on some other trash TV. In the meantime, who knows?
Yeah, we're not sure.
Who knows what will happen?
Hope to figure that out.
Do you have any final words for season 25 of The Bachelor, Christy? Anything you want the people to know?
Not much. It was fun to watch, even if it was a mess. It was still entertaining.
Yes, and it's good to, as I was saying earlier when I misheard you, I enjoy podcasting. I enjoy podcasting with a good co-host. The enjoyment comes more from perhaps roasting things as they happen, observing just the completely ridiculousness. But I think overall, we did have more fun than Matt.
Oh, that's for sure. No question there. This was fun, especially as a first podcasting experience, for me at least.
Yes, I would agree. Well, we probably won't speak to you next week, but until next time, have a great life.
Goodbye.
This has been Group Dates and Hot Takes, a Bachelor Nation podcast. I'm Sampy.
I'm Christy.
And we'll see you next season.